Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Theo. I'm a Cambridge University alumnus and YouTuber, and recently I switched from PC to Mac. Now in a previous video I explained why I made the switch and why I love the M1 MacBook Pro so much. But in this video I want to talk about the drawbacks of having switched to the M1 MacBook Pro. Now, for as much as I love it, there still are some drawbacks. This is not to say that I regret making the switch, not at all. Actually, it's quite the opposite. But making the switch itself comes with some drawbacks that I want to talk about in this video. So make sure to like this video and let's jump right into it. Now, the first drawback of switching has been the time commitment that is necessary in order to switch to a different computer, and especially when switching to a different operating system. This is due to the fact that I'm very new to macOS. I used to be a PC guy and I grew up with Windows ever since I was 6, and Windows was second nature to me already. Here I had to relearn how to adjust the settings in order to set up the Mac the way I wanted to. It was also about installing every application that I needed in my everyday work and connecting to all my accounts for Microsoft Office, for example, or Zoom, and everything that I needed on a daily basis. I also made the switch midway through my second term, so I felt the time commitment more than I would have felt it had it been during the vacation, for example. macOS also has some little quirks that are typical to Apple, which I was expecting nonetheless, which is why they were cute and annoying at the same time. So I also had to find some workarounds for those things. Like, for example, every command that in Microsoft on PC works with Control, like Control B for bold and Control I for italics. On Mac it worked with Command. So I had to go on Google, search how to do it, and then go into the settings and switch the function of the Command and Control buttons on the keyboard. This also helped for copying and pasting with Control C and Control V, which on Mac is Command C and Command V. So right now I've got Command set to the Control button and Control, which is rarely used on Mac, on the command button, so that I can keep the same motion and not lose time trying to find the keys. I also had to get used to a different way of cutting and pasting stuff from a folder to the other. On PC you press Ctrl X to cut and then Ctrl V to paste. On Mac, however, you use Command C to copy, and in order to cut, so delete is from the previous folder, you would use Command Option V. So the change happens when pasting, not when copying. Another thing that I thought that I could get used to, but I couldn't, was the slight lag in the functioning of the caps lock on this keyboard. Now, the keyboard is one of the things I really love about the M1 MacBook Pro, but it was just the functionality of the caps lock that was annoying me. In order to get it to work, you have to keep it pressed a little longer than the other keys. For this reason, because I'm usually very quick in activating and deactivating the caps lock for writing capital letters, I kept typing words with a small initial letter and the rest in capitals. Now, the workaround for that I had to search for on Google again, and the solution is a small bit of software that introduces some code in the back end and that you can set up to open up every time you open your Mac, and it disables that lag on the caps lock. So you get the gist of it. It's mainly stuff that is different from PC, or little small quirks that Apple considers their features, but they may feel like bugs to some people like me. A second drawback of switching has been the fact that external hard drives that are formatted for PC don't work on Mac. They are read-only on Macs, but for larger files like videos, and if you've got many folders under each other, then you might not even find those files on the Mac. So it's not really practical to work with PC formatting for hard drives on a Mac. I didn't have another place to store my information from the previous hard drive, so what I had to do because of this was to buy a new hard drive, especially for the Mac, and format it accordingly. This to some extent has also been a good thing, however, because this has prompted me to get some online storage as well for my YouTube project, and now I've got all my completed videos and other filmmaking assets on my Google Workspace, which is a much more secure form of storage in the cloud than physical hard drives, which may break at any time and you may lose all the data. Now, the third and biggest drawback has been that I had to completely change my YouTube filmmaking workflow based around a different video editing software. Previously on PC, I used to edit on Adobe Premiere Pro, which was a fine program for PC, But now with the M1 MacBook Pro, because of the fact that Premiere is not yet optimized for the M1 processor, I was definitely set on switching to Final Cut Pro, which is Apple's proprietary video editing software that they've already optimized for the M1. However, I knew right from the beginning that switching my video editing software would completely change my workflow and that I was in for a bumpy ride. And that was absolutely true. Over the past few weeks, through trial and error and searching for YouTube videos on how to do various stuff that I used to do in Premiere Pro, I've been slowly learning how to use the program and building a new routine, a new workflow around it. For those of you who are doing video editing, some of the things that I found most different between Premiere and Final Cut Pro have been the way I edit audio and the way I add transitions and titles. For editing audio, I used to export my entire audio from Premiere into Adobe Audition and then edit it there and export it back as a final stereo audio clip. In Final Cut Pro, it's a somewhat simpler process, but you have to get used to using compound clips. It all happens in Final Cut, but you have to get used to applying effects. And then if you want to apply effects to the entire channel, you have to create a compound clip from all the clips and then apply effects to that clip. So you're not adding any effects to the channel per se, but to the clips themselves. Also, the way you add transitions and titles is a bit different, but I also find it faster and easier. There are some default transitions and effects in Final Cut Pro that are really useful in quickly crafting those swift entrances of titles and exits, and also the transitions between the clips. I particularly love this kind of transition very much, and this kind of enter and exit of the titles. The good thing about it is that I've been learning to love Final Cut Pro, and I've been learning to appreciate its strengths. Now that I'm picking momentum in my learning curve for Final Cut Pro, I'm actually realizing that it makes the editing process faster and more enjoyable, also more approachable and less intimidating than Premiere Pro. So I'm actually currently learning to love it, and this is true for my entire switching to Mac experience. But despite these drawbacks, the advantages of switching to the M1 MacBook Pro far outweigh the disadvantages, and I'm really glad I made the switch. Now, if you liked this video and if you found it useful in your decision making, whether you want to get an M1 Mac or not, or you just found it entertaining, then consider liking the video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to my channel for more useful videos like this, more about technology, productivity, and self-improvement. If you'd like to hear some more from me about different attitudes to life and our relationship with tech, then you can subscribe to my newsletter and you'll get an email from me every other week discussing an interesting topic like this. Also, if you like the work I'm doing, you can now support me by buying me a coffee via the link in the description. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye bye.